Hello, my name is Thomas Schuttenhelm, and I am the Artistic Director at Network for New Music. Today, we are excited to have Nina Siniakova here on our Conversations with Composers in advance of our concerts in October on Saturday the 21st at the University of the Arts and on Monday the 23rd at Haverford College. And these concerts will feature a new piece by Philadelphia-based composer, pianist, and educator Nina Siniakova. Welcome, Nina.
Hello, how impressive. You pronounced my name in the most correct way. Great job.
It's wonderful to see you, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I think I did sort of a deep dive into your music, and in particular, your recording called Frozen Reflections, which has a number of really remarkable works on it. In particular, the harpsichord and violin piece. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how that recording came about and the pieces that are featured on that recording.
Wow, you impressed me again. You actually have listened to my works. Very cool. Well, I guess it was the phase where my language started to really form in a certain direction, and maybe that's why I hear very nice words about that one. Frozen Reflections came as an idea that was given to me by a friend of mine in Italy. She wanted to have a piece with the harpsichord and violin for her recital about Italian winter. And I didn't know what to do. When you think about Italy, it's pizza, right? It's soccer, it's Pavarotti. Hey, let's go. And suddenly I need to write about winter. So I did a lot of research until I finally found black and white pictures of misty Venice. And it was so different from anything else I've ever seen. And so one of the pictures had a reflection of the seagull in the puddle. And this is where the title came from, because it was a reflection and it was this understanding that everything was frozen a little bit. And so this is where it came from. But I'll be honest with you, I think it was very, very challenging to find a twist on this so Baroque combination. How did you do with that? And so I have listened to a lot of stuff, and Ligeti is the usual pioneer who has fantastic twists, whether it's organ, whether it's harpsichord, whatever, woodwind quintet. He had such a unique approach that his ideas inspired me. And of course, piece by Louis Andriessen. The beginning I stole from him. But yeah, it was an interesting journey to discover what is it actually I like and what I can do with this, you would think, typical combination of instruments. And I think I found a successful way of working with this.
Excellent. And you mentioned Ligeti and Andriessen, two really important composers of the 20th century. What are some of your other influences?
I guess for everyone who writes music, it's important to be up to date, first of all. I listen to a lot, whatever, any YouTube channel of contemporary music, but most recently, I've discovered Belgian music. Gosh, Claude Ledoux. I have listened so much, and what really impressed me is how extremely professional he writes and how emotional his music is, and how when you listen to something, music tells you a story. Now, it's extremely advanced language. We are not talking about C major, although Prokofiev wrote in C major, and it's not very simple C major. No, we're talking about very sophisticated, highly modern language that somehow speaks to me. So I listen to a lot of that. Murray is always fun to listen to. For probably 10 years, I was very much inspired by Sarajevo, but I guess I'm just shifting to somewhere else. In general, things that I appreciate are color and depth.
Yes.
Yes, that's it.
Now, you're a very capable pianist, and I'm wondering, how does that play a role, being a performing artist? How does that play a role in your composition? Do you compose always at the piano?
And then I will ask the same question to you. I'll ask you the same question. No, only when I use the piano, I need to sit at the piano and try something. When it's not for the piano, when it's orchestra, any other instrument, I hear things and I just write them down. But as a performer, you know what really makes difference is me knowing that someone will play it. And so the practicality of it is extremely important. So whenever I can, to simplify things, whenever I have a feedback from the performer, you better do this instead of that, or this is what, yes, it saves time in the rehearsal. And you know what? These two couple of notes are not going to make a huge change for me, but it makes a huge change for a performer because it cuts the rehearsal time and they don't have to practice so much. So this is how I look at it. So as a performer, the practicality is always there.
Yes, indeed, indeed.
How
Now,
about yourself? You're the performer.
I am, and you know, I would say it's a bit of a mix for me, depending on the situation, as you were mentioning. I'm curious. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey as a composer? Because you have a very interesting upbringing that informs what you do as a performer and a composer. And I wonder if you could share that with us.
Well, I started playing when I was 4. I wrote my first piece when I was 6. So technically I'm writing all my life, if you wish. And then I guess it's the travels that I have done extensively. So I grew up in Belarus. I studied in St. Petersburg in Russia. I studied in Cologne. I traveled in Europe quite a bit. Then it was New York. And I think cultures and languages, sound of the language changes us. And maybe we're influenced just like Van Gogh. When he was in Paris, he would go to his friends. And by the end of the day, his brother would say, which specific artist Van Gogh visited earlier today because it was in his evening painting. I guess it's normal for us to be influenced and to change, but I think we never stop growing, and I think it's important that we change. I think it's important that we challenge, and so for me, I think this amount of moves and changes of countries and learning about different nationalities helped me become who I am, also as a composer.
Indeed. I think what I'm asking about is, why did you choose a play, or rather an anti-play, as the inspiration for your commission piece that Network will feature on our October concerts?
Well, I have a degree in acting. My parents were actors. I literally grew up in the wings of the stage. So my parents there. And when I started acting, along with 2 majors at music college, I came across the book, Theater of Absurd, and it was a real discovery. I've never read anything like that. And, you know, like somehow things that influence us, they sit somewhere, it's in part of our brain. And for years and years, we think, I have to do something. I have to do something about it. And when I was reading about this play recently, too many things came together. And for the first time, I thought, when your offer came, too many things came together. And for the first time, I thought, why did I never use acting in my music, actually? So even if I had some elements of staging in my previous works, but a musical work that is heavily incorporates acting, this is the first time I'm doing it. And I wonder what will come out of it. I don't know. I'm curious to see.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned all of those elements as part of, you know, the inspiration for your piece. So, you know, the sort of that world of the theater of the absurd, which, you know, if anybody might know maybe Samuel Beckett more than they know Ionesco, which your piece is based on. And that we do indeed enjoy a rich tradition of pieces that have performance art as an element. For example, like the 8 Songs of a Mad King by Peter Maxwell Davies. But your piece in particular, you've chosen the alternate title for the original title. So you're choosing It's Raining Cats and Dogs, which was the alternate title of The Bald Soprano, Ionesco's original title. So tell us a little bit about how that ties into the drama that we're going to both hear and see.
You did your homework. Look at you. I'm impressed for the 3rd time. As usual, once you start composing, there are certain coincidences that happen. I am learning French. And when I was reading about the play, I'm sorry. So it turned out UNESCO was learning English. And I was discovering a very cool system to learn French. It's Michel Thomas. Fantastic, really the best. As I was reading, and he was discovering something else. And since this was the literal translation of It's Raining Cats and Dogs, and it is in line with that idea of absurd, and I thought, okay, so why don't I pull that title out, since so many coincidences happen, and we'll just start there. And what it allowed me to do, so what I think is once you use an absurd title, it kind of entitles you to do whatever you want. The only trick is, of course, choose a certain path of this insanity, because even insanity has its own rules. Okay.
Excellent. Now, some of our audiences may even got to see The Bald Soprano, because I looked up and it happened to be, it was playing at the Philadelphia Fringe Festival in 2016.
Seriously?
Yeah. But I'm curious, how did you prepare to write the piece? Did you reread the play? Did you act out some of the scenes in your head? Tell us a little bit about how you got into character to create this piece.
Oh, thank you. Wonderful question. Yeah, I read it in French, I read it in English, I read it in Russian. I watched stagings in French, in Russian, probably not in English, and I actually read about theater of absurd. And I watched interviews with UNESCO just to get a feel what this is all about. And I think these things usually inspire, and what I saw in all these versions on the stage, it's a comedy. It's so funny, and things that they share, they're not absurd in a bad way. They're absurd as life can get, as we can laugh at certain bizarre situations in our life. That's about that, right? Things that are put upside down and presented as a reality of life make us laugh, and that's exactly what's happening in there. Yes, but just digging in and seeing what is behind that play helped a lot, that's for sure.
And how did you create the resonance for the piece?
The resonance,
the sound world, in the way that like a scene, the stage can set the scene for us. How do you set that for us in terms of the music?
So it was actually very tricky to do, because one thing is you imagining what's happening in terms of acting as a director, and I believe I could have been a director overall, but it's kind of a different language. And then the music by itself, it's another page. And it was a little tricky for me to move between these two worlds, because once you dive into music, you want to write it well. It's not because it's going to be a funny piece for like musical chairs happening on the stage and whatever, and people fooling around, but still there is music. Music has to be written very well. So the resonance, if that's what you mean, I wanted to mimic the endless talking, because there's a lot of unnecessary talking, and that play in our life, and certain elements I'm using in my score are repetitive, and they were inspired by this idea, just unnecessary talking all the time. Well, I wanted to make it in an elegant way. That's of course up to listeners to decide how elegant it came, but the idea of talks gave me the first element of the piece.
in the few pages that I've had to review and look at as we prepare for our performances, I'm really impressed that this is not a piece this isn't scene music for. It's like you're reenacting it through the musicians.
I would say so. I would say so. It was my goal in true. I can see that it might be a little bit challenging for musicians. It depends what they're ready for. But hey, we'll explore together. And this togetherness of exploration, that I think what's the most exciting part. We'll build it together.
It is, and we're all very excited to present It's Raining Cats and Dogs for the Network Ensemble at our upcoming concerts on Saturday, October 21st at the University of the Arts, and on Monday, on October 23rd at Haverford College. Both concerts begin at 7:30, and Nina Siniakova will join us for them. So you'll get to meet Nina in person. Nina, we can't wait to see you. And thanks again.
Thank you.